just to do a quick overview on what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about two different things, communication and our coping strategies. So we're going to start off with our information on communication. So we're going to be going over communicating the diagnosis, changes into communication, and how to communicate more effectively. So reacting to your diagnosis. Oftentimes, receiving a diagnosis can be a sudden and frightening experiences, and it sometimes plunges families into a unknown state where they're lost in the sea of social services and don't really know where to turn or who to go to at the appropriate stage and things like that. So we've put a few different programs in place here to help with that, and that being our First Link program. So hopefully when receiving a diagnosis now, you'll be able to connect with your family physician or social worker or whoever it may be that's helping manage the case to connect with our society through the First Link program. It is a referral program, and individuals can be directly referred upon diagnosis. So when receiving a diagnosis, like I said, it can be overwhelming, and every person reacts differently. Some people may be unwelcome to the diagnosis, so they may show signs of denial and things like that. And it's important to remember that there is no right or wrong reaction in these situations. So we really need to make sure that we create our support systems right from the beginning of diagnosis. So letting friends and family know that you have received this diagnosis and include them in that process of coping with the diagnosis. So sometimes people with dementia may feel sad or depressed over the diagnosis as well, or fearful of the diagnosis, and communication is key there. Talking about these feelings and expressing all these emotions that you're going through will really help you with coping with them and moving forward with the diagnosis in a positive way. So these are some of the reactions which have been common in experiencing a diagnosis and things. So shock and numbness. A diagnosis of dementia can come as a shock, and even if you have been half expecting it, you may have seen the signs leading up to it, seen all the warning lights going off there, but it's still, once you get that confirmation of the diagnosis, it can still hit you pretty hard. And the disbelief and denial can then come with that as well. And we use denial to shield ourselves from our painful news. So we adjust inwardly to our new reality. And anger and frustration is a really prominent one as well, becoming angry at the diagnosis. These feelings can be uncomfortable, and it takes time to sort through many and any of these reactions, including the frustration and anger at the situation. And that can be at the diagnosis, it can be at yourself, it can be at so many different things in this, just not understanding why it had to happen to you, say. The despondency and sadness, everyone will experience feelings of helplessness and powerlessness and intense sadness. So with a disease that has no known cause or cure, these are very common forms because you do feel very helpless. The medications which are in place are not a cure for the diagnosis. They're simply there to help with the day-to-day cognitive being. But the other feelings of helplessness will still be there, and it's to reach out to your support groups and have your families and friends in place to be there to support you and help you out in any way possible. And then acceptance of the problem rather than avoidance. So realizing that the situation that you're in, you need to adjust to and plan for rather than run away from. So communicating the diagnosis. Have you shared the diagnosis with other family members? Have you shared it with friends? Have you shared it with neighbors in the community? Communicating the diagnosis can be challenging. It's hard to express this to others when it can be hard for you to accept it yourself. So the fear of their response can be one of these things. It's not quite sure how they're going to react to you telling them about this diagnosis. It's them saying, just brushing it off, saying, "Oh, I forget things too. You can't have that." When really it has been confirmed and you do have the diagnosis, then it's to move to that acceptance stage that we were just looking at. And then the stigma in society, which is a huge thing that we as our organization try to battle on a daily basis. There is a large stigma around the disease, and we are having many awareness campaigns and educational sessions like the one here today. So hopefully the conversations do get flowing around the disease, and people are more accepting of having free-flowing conversations about this diagnosis. And just being treated differently. People are fearful that if they tell their friends that they have been diagnosed with this disease, that their friends won't hang out with them in the same way or treat them the same way, talk to them the same way, and stuff like that. So it's a lot of things running through your mind when you're thinking about telling other people that you have received this diagnosis. So this is just a few more points here on why might telling others be difficult, and it's you need a period of time for the news to settle in. So to adjust to it with your spouse or whoever you are experiencing this diagnosis with, to process it in your own due time and make sure that if you're unsure of how people will react or respond, go through a few different scenarios and be prepared for what your friends and family might say to you. Maybe you have a bit of a different side that you could tune into to connect with them. Think about different ways to make this something that you can experience. If you're large into fundraising, maybe another friend you fundraise with, you could say, "Hey, we have a new fundraising opportunity, a new society to get involved in," and then that would bring them through our doors. And it's about getting in the doors and being comfortable with this environment as well, and being around the conversations of the disease helps you plan and prepare to tell others. So to speak about some of the benefits of sharing your diagnosis with others, it is about that social and emotional support. Because it can be, we were talking about the fear of the diagnosis and the unknown and expressing it with friends and family. So if you have that support through your friends and your family and people in your church group or your volunteer group and things like that, then you're able to have that support as you are moving forward and journeying with the disease. The relief that others know as well, so you're not hiding the diagnosis or anything like this, and then they have the knowledge of your diagnosis and can understand where you may be coming from in some areas. The safety, so others knowing about your diagnosis for health reasons, understanding that you may show signs of wandering later on in the disease, and if a friend and family member do know, then maybe they're able to keep an eye out for you and make sure that if you were to wander off, to safely return you home. Also, helping others understand what it's like to live with the disease. So the stigma that we see in our society as well is that people are so unknown to this disease. They don't understand what it's like to live with it. So if you share that with others who you're close with, then hopefully that will help end this stigma and create more understanding around the disease and the symptoms and behaviors of it. So who should I tell? I've been repeating family and friends over again, so you know that that's going to be at the top of my list here. But people in your community is also ideal. If you live in a neighborhood where you have a few neighbors who may know who you are, who your spouse is, and things like that, it's ideal to let them know in case of the safety reasons. Again, say your spouse who has been diagnosed with the disease wanders away from your home and may become lost, then someone in your neighborhood is aware of your spouse's diagnosis and can maybe safely return them home for you, so then that crisis situation has been avoided. Tell people as they need to know. It doesn't have to be put this on a billboard on the side of the street that I have Alzheimer's disease, but it's let people know as you feel comfortable. If you're in a type of setting where you think that sharing this information may be beneficial to you and what you're experiencing, then yes, most certainly tell those people. And respect your own needs for privacy while acknowledging the value of telling others. So it is your own personal life and it is your diagnosis. So of course there are very private matters that go along with that and go along with some of the different symptoms and behavioral things of the disease. So it is understanding to definitely keep some things private. So tips on how to tell others, because this is always great. It's kind of awkward. It's how do you express someone? Do you just come out and say this at the dinner table, or how do I go about it? So having ideas like this, maybe coming together for a family meeting, or maybe while you're visiting for coffee, it's a friend who you can share this with. And just share with others how memory loss has changed your life, the effects that it has on you in your day-to-day living, so then they know how to adjust for you as well. And share how you are still able to do many of the same things as you have always done. Oftentimes when people are diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease, they're in their 40s and 50s and still in the workplace, still going to church and all their other extracurriculars in their life and things like that. So just because you've received this diagnosis doesn't mean that your life is over then. You can continue working and you can continue participating in those things and living life as hopefully as regular as possible and at the highest quality of life as possible. So we have some changes in communication. When we communicate, by speaking and listening as we do through our tone, the pacing, and the volume of our voice. So when speaking with someone who has Alzheimer's disease or related dementia, it's often nice to remember the tone of your voice and the pacing, as in keeping the tone in a positive, light manner and pacing at a slower speed instead of rushing through your sentences and things like that. Also, recognizing that the volume of your voice is at a clear listening level. Nonverbal through our body language. So our openness in our body language, our comfort behind our touch and things like that, and just being a very positive, comforting, nurturing person. So dementia can affect communication in a number of ways. And it's always really vital to remember that each person is as unique as the disease, and each person will experience this disease in a very different way. And it will vary with the type of the disease as well. Some people may have different symptoms than others. Some people may have the symptoms in a different order. So it really is as unique as the person who has the disease. So some more on communication here. We have understanding or contributing to conversation, finding or pronouncing words, the understanding of written material, body language, following directions, repeating words, and taking and talking less than usual. These are all communication changes which you will see or which you may see in someone who has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or a related dementia. So understanding or contributing to a conversation. If we're in a large crowd or in a crowd like we are here today and there's several conversations going on at once, it may be difficult for this individual to tune into one conversation and understand what's happening in that one and to then enter that conversation and contribute. And searching for and the pronunciation of words is another little memory lapse which may come with that. So forgetting a word, not being able to place the word which you want to use in a sentence. And the understanding of the written material and the body language. Again, like I had said earlier, keeping the body language positive because the negative, rushy, flustered body language can be very effective to someone who has a diagnosis of the disease. The following of directions is to keep the directions really simple and go step by step, because if you list out a bunch of directions and just give them all at one time, then that may be both very overwhelming for the individual, and they may not be able to understand that and follow the directions then. So it's good to give as many identifying factors in your directions, so color or size, placement, and things like this. Lots of very descriptive details. And then go step by step. Keep it simple. Let one process happen before you tell them of the next process. The repetition of words. Usually with the repetition of words comes repetition of questions. So asking the same question over and over again, because even though you've already answered it, the individual does not retain any new memories. So as you have told this question, the answer to this question, they have already forgotten it. So it's ideal to keep the answer consistent. Try and give the same answer every time or as close to it, to then avoid adding any extra confusion to the situation. And the talking less than usual is by not being able to place words, you may not want to engage in conversation as much. You could say that the same for yourself. If you're having difficulty one day stumbling over all your words and forgetting words and things like that, then you may be a bit more reluctant to speak and engage in conversation if you know that you may have difficulty engaging.